The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rick Judd. I'm with the Boss LM Professional Services Group, and want to welcome you to this deep dive today on how to use chemical functionality in Boss. I have your microphones muted, but feel free to use the question area of your GoToWebinar control panel to ask any questions. Hopefully we'll be able to review these during the webinar, but certainly at the end we'll have some time to look at those questions as well. Start off with the PowerPoint and then do a demo in Boss itself. So we're going to talk about chemical mixtures today, how to set them up, what they do in Boss, what they look like in job tickets, what they look like in purchasing. So some features of the chemicals are fundamentally the mixture is a combination of chemicals typically mixed with water that they're applied as part of a service. They are created like any other item, but there are differences as well. One difference is cost. Since this is an internal product, price is set by you, so you'd have to figure out exactly what you have into the mixture. So you'd figure out what your chemicals cost to create the mixture. You'd figure out what the water costs, that kind of thing. You set the cost, and then you also identify the components that are used to create the mixture. And that's done through the item record in Boss. This is what the item screen looks like in Boss when you look at the chemical treatment tab. What you see here is several sections of the screen. Talks about the dosage. In other words, what are the production factors, I suppose, where the amount used, what's the coverage, the number, or the unit type. In this case, we see that we're going to use 2 gallons for every 1,000 square feet, and we're going to mix it with water. The next section then details the products that we're actually going to use and how much, given the dosage. In other words, for 2 gallons we see there, how much of each chemical do we need? And so these chemicals have to be in your catalog already. So in this example, we see 2 chemicals, and both of those already exist in my catalog. What I'm doing here is I'm combining these 2 chemicals on my chemical treatment tab to create my mix. And as I add the products and I describe the dosage, then down at the bottom of the screen here we see a description, and this description is created automatically for me based on the information that's shown on the screen. I can modify this information, but the default values are set based on the information I've already entered here. And I can also identify what the method of application is. In this case, I've got my hydraulic sprayer. So this is how we set up an item catalog. We identify that this is what we're going to use. We're going to give it a name, in this case, the spring lawn mix. We identify the production factors, the components that are going to be used to create it, and this is our item. As I said before, the dosage is used to set the application rates or factors. Here we've got 2 gallons per 1,000 square feet. We've got the products, the chemical products that are actually used to create it. So we've got the specific chemical, the ratios that we need to create the mixture. And as I said, they have to be in the catalog already so that we can pick them. And then here's our description. It can be changed from the default, and it does appear on the job ticket. So when the ticket's generated and the guys take it out, get ready to do the work, we're going to see that description on the ticket so they know what those ratios are and what they need to do to create the mixture if it's not already made. So from the after we create the mixture, then we add that to a service item, just like any other item might be added. In this case, we're looking at the service item screen, and we see that we're creating the service item for our spring lawn care. And so we've got some labor in there. What's the application rates or the factors really for the labor? And then we've got our spring lawn mix. Again, this is our home brew, and we've created a service item for this, and that just means we can add it to a service and use it just like any other service item in our catalog. The screenshot here shows a service, and so in this case it's weed control, and we're just going to include our spring lawn care mixture. And again, that's at home brew, but it's configured like any other service, and we're including a service item just like other service items in our catalog. In the estimating side, same thing again. We enter your takeoff measurements, and then based on the factors that we've created as part of our service item, then Boss is going to calculate out for us what our labor and material requirements are, as well as our price and cost. As I mentioned before, the description that's set up in the item does appear on the job ticket, and that's what we see here. We see the description that came from the item. It describes the spring lawn mix. It tells us how much we need. In this example, it's 34¼ gallons. But it tells us how to mix that spring lawn mix. So if you don't already have this mixed up in some containers or some way for the guys to get it themselves, this tells them how to mix it. That 34.25 gallons, that description is displayed on the job ticket. Another component of this is material management, and material management is used by BOSS to let us know what we need to order to get jobs done. So before, when we set the chemical mixture up, we identified the specific chemicals that were used to create the mixture. But we see here in material management, we don't see those component pieces, but instead what we see is the mixture. So it tells us how many gallons of the mixture we need. Critical piece here, doesn't tell us how much of the component chemicals. So somebody's going to have to know, in this case, to create this 40 gallons of this lawn mix, you're going to have to know what goes into it, and you're going to have to order those separately, because BOSS doesn't tell us in material management how much of those component pieces we need. It just tells us, in this case, we need 40 gallons of our lawn mix. As part of this, to get the cost onto the job, we need to create a purchase order for that, because that's how we get material-related job costing into the system. In this case, it's our internal mix. So we want to make sure to check the checkbox that says internal PO. And then internal PO checkbox, it just means that transaction is not going to go over to your accounting system as a payable. And so that's correct. This is our own internal mixture. We created it. We set the cost for it. But we do need to get that cost back onto the job, so we do need to create a PO. So we'd create an internal PO, and we would indicate how much of this mixture we have available. And again, you can either put it in inventory and use it on the jobs, or you can directly allocate to the jobs. But at any rate, we do need to create a PO so we can get that material-related job costing into BOSS. So what I'd like to do now is give you a little demo of how it works. We've seen the PowerPoint. So right now I'm going to go ahead and show BOSS, and we'll kind of get started on this. So the first piece of this was to go ahead and create the item itself. Looks like maybe went to sleep here. Here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new item, and this is going to be my lawn mix. So I'll go ahead and set it up just like I would any other item. And so this is going to be material. Give it an item name and a category. I can put that if I want to. In this case, I'm going to have my unit types be gallons. And my conversion factor is just 1 gallon to 1 gallon, what I purchased and allocated. Those are the same. And then my default cost, as I said, this is something that I establish. I know that the chemical components, what those cost per gallon, and then maybe I might also want to include the labor or the water itself. But at any rate, I'm going to determine this cost myself. So I'll go ahead and add my item here. And I'm not ready to do my service item, so I'm going to go ahead and close that screen. But I am going to go to my chemical mixture tab. And this is where we indicate how it can be applied, how much we need, and then also those chemical components that are part of this as well. So I'll go ahead and start filling this out. And I'll see I'm going to use 2 gallons per 1,000 square feet. So I'll type in my units here as well, my square feet. And I'm going to mix this with water. So that's my dosage. Next thing I need to do is determine which type of chemicals I'm going to use to create my mix. And again, these chemicals have to exist in my catalog already. So I'm going to go ahead and type in a few chemicals here. So this is the chemical, or one of the components anyway, I'm going to use, and how much. So I'm going to say I'm going to use 3/4 of an ounce. And then I'll add another chemical as well. And in this case, 1.5 ounces. And so we see here the default description, and this is all based on the information that I've entered already. I can modify this if I want to, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it at the default and remember that this description shows up on the job ticket. And then how am I going to apply it? I'm going to say it's a hydraulic sprayer. So at this point in time, I'm going to go ahead and update my item. And so now I can create my service item because I've got my chemical identified, I've got my cost, I've got everything I want. So I'll go ahead and create service item. So again, this is very similar to other service items you may have, and you can pick whatever phase group you want. I'm just picking one at random here. Got my gallons. One thing I do want to do, though, is I've got my spring lawn mix in here, but I need to clean that up and add some labor as well. So I've got my unit type is going to be in square feet. And I want a laborer. And let's see. Here we go, labor. So here's where I put in my production factors. So I've got my labor here, and I'm going to say that he can do 10,000 square feet in an hour. And my gross margin, 97%, we'll say. And then my spring lawn mix, we'll put in the production factors for that, and it's 0.002 gallons per square feet. And what's my gross margin here? And I'll say 75%. So I'm configuring the service item just like I would any other service item, but in this case I've got my spring lawn care mix. So I'll go ahead and add my service item. So the next thing I want to do to complete this is I want to add that service item to a service. So I'll go back out here to create my new service. So I'll use my plus sign here, create new service. And so I'm just going to call it my weed control pre-emergent and give it a revenue class, say lawn care, available for contract, some of these other settings that you can make as appropriate. And if I want to add a description here as well. So I'll go ahead and add my service. And now I want to add my service item, which is my spring lawn. Oops. I'm going to add it, not look it up. So I'll go over here. There's my mix. I'm going to add that to my service. Don't need to make any changes here, although I could make it required. But we'll just add our mix there and close this up. So that's all we did. We created the item. We're building this into our service catalog. So we start off with the item. We built the service item. And now we're at the service. So now I've got my service for my weed control pre-emergent, and I can now use my spring lawn care mix on a work order or contract. So that's going to be the next piece that I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on a contract, or actually a work order. So let me go find a piece of property here. And we'll create a work order. And just chemical application. And we'll have this bid type, and we'll just do it today. We'll go ahead and add our work order. So now I'm going to select my service, which is my weed control pre-emergent. And I'll go in here and specify what my service items are. I've only got the one, but this is my lawn care mix. So I'm going to go ahead and add that in here, and we'll say 20,000 square feet. And we do that, then based on our production factors, it tells us how much labor is required to do the work, how much material is required. We end up with a cost and a price based on the margins and markups I have. So again, this is just like any other work order. We're using existing services and service items, putting our takeoff measurements in there, and then that calculates out what labor and material requirements are needed to get the job done. So question here, can you create an item with other items? No, the item is at the very base level. It's it's a building block for everything. So an item really stands on its own. When we build a service item, that could be comprised of items, but also could be comprised of other service items. That's where kits come into play, and I think we've had a deep dive on that not too long ago. But kits can be used and service items where you use other existing service items as part of that. Another question, where did the chemical list come from then? Are you speaking of the chemicals I picked, like the dimension and that kind of thing? If that's the case, those were already in my item catalog. So I just already created those. I already had in existence the dimension, the other chemical components I needed. So when I created my spring lawn care mix, I selected those. They already existed. So I guess really, yeah, your question there is, maybe go back to the first question, can we create an item based on other items? We can't really create an item from other items, but what we did is we created an item, and then we used chemicals that already existed as items. So maybe that's a better answer to your question initially. All right, so we've got this service on there. We've identified the takeoff measurements. So we'll just go ahead now and submit this, and we'll see what this looks like on a job ticket as well as material management. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this and accept it. And because of the way my system's set up, where I was going to do the work, start and end dates are today, and it's a work order and the dollar amount's not too much, we should see this as a ticket that I don't have to forecast it. So let's just try that. So I'll put in my job number here. And here's my ticket. So we'll take a look at this. And when we print our ticket, it does show here, you know, the 40 gallons of our spring lawn care mix. And then when I print the ticket, okay, so like we saw in the PowerPoint, we've got our description here. So if this isn't already mixed up where the guys can't just draw 40 gallons out of some larger container, this does tell them exactly what those ratios are for the different components, the different chemicals, as well as the mix rates. So this shows up on the job ticket. So on the material management side, where we may want to go and look and see, well, what do we need to order to get the job done? We can go here to material management, and same thing, I could type in the job number, or I could ask for just the spring lawn care mix. But let's take a look here and see what that looks like. And as we saw in the PowerPoint, this doesn't list out the chemical components, but instead it just says that we need 40 gallons of the spring lawn care mix. So on the purchasing side, somebody's going to have to know to create that 40 gallons, these are the other pieces we need to make that happen. So critical piece here in material management doesn't list out the components you need, it just lists out the mix that you need to get the work done. Also, as we saw in the PowerPoint, I'm going to go ahead and create a purchase order here. To get our job costing into the system, we do need to create a PO. So probably what you would do is you'd set yourself up as a vendor, and you'd say it's an internal PO because you're not going to be paying anybody for this mixture that you order. But this establishes a cost, and then now we can apply it to job tickets and get our material-related job costing. So to bring this full circle then, you do need to have a PO so you can put that material, that spring lawn care mix, on the purchase order. So that's the end of the demo for this part of the chemical mixtures. So if you have any other questions, again, use that question control panel. So we've got another one here. If we enter all the services, will it tell us how many gallons we need to do an entire round? Yes, absolutely. Material management, in this case, I went and I asked for a specific job. But the other thing I could always do is come over here to the item name and just type in spring lawn care mix or whatever it is that I name it. And in that case, it will show me the total amount that I need across all jobs. So that's probably a better way to do it than just put in the job number. You know, if you're going to order the product for, you know, all of your jobs, then probably the best thing to do is either put them in there by item name or maybe by service name and see what you need to order. But yeah, material management could tell you how much you need for all jobs, not just for the one job, the example that I had. So I think I'm current on the questions. If there's any more, I'll stick around for a bit more to answer those questions. Otherwise, you know, what I'm going to do is we've recorded this and we'll put it out on the support site. We'll have a link for that before the day's out, hopefully. And in addition, there's also a document on the support site that goes over chemicals. So if you have any questions beyond the deep dive here, there is a document on the support site that describes with screenshots and some other descriptions how the chemical functionality in BOSS works. So I don't see any other questions on my control panel. If you do have questions later, feel free to submit them to the support site, as well as review the knowledge base that's there to look up the chemical-related document. But I thank you for your time and your attention, and we'll have another one of these next month. So I'll be watching your email for notifications on the next deep dive. Again, thanks for your time, and everyone have a great day. Thank you.